my drumming, my bass playing, my bass writing, my drum writing, like all that stuff was not as good as the songs.
Right.
And I even brought like friends in to play on certain parts. I was like, maybe like if I bring in a drummer and a bassist, then it'll sound good. And they played great parts, but like I was right there next to him being like, do this, do that, And to me, like these songs, at least I hope that they're kind of like timeless songs, that like could have been written at any time.
Yeah.
And so I really, to get inspiration for the production, I kind of went back to the old school way of making an album. And so I hired Brett Stewart and Wirebird Productions up in Nashville. Had a great time, only wonderful things to say about it if anyone's looking for a producer out there. But yeah, I feel like I needed someone else to look at it and help me organize it. Like I said, I missed with the band, and I wanted the bass playing on it to be top-notch bass playing, and I wanted the drumming to be top-notch drumming. So I went up to Nashville. I had a friend of a friend who went to Belmont, and so he knew people in Nashville. I just reached out to him. He put me in touch. Brett is the same guy that mixed the Rabbit Season songs.
Okay.
So I kind of had a relationship with him. I was like, hey, you want to produce this? We talked about it a little bit. And then, I sent him like the songs and the chord charts. And then I just drove up to Nashville and he found the musicians because everyone you really walk down the street and you'll pass like 10.
Yeah, throw a rock.
Yeah, exactly. You'll hit like the greatest musician ever.
Yeah.
These people just came in and like you could tell that like some of them didn't even listen to the song beforehand, but the things they played were just absolutely incredible.
Yeah. And
so to me, that was the collaboration aspect where like I'm going to step back and I'm not going to be the producer. I'm not going to be the drummer or the bassist. I'm just going to stay in my lane and do what I think I'm good at and what I think I bring to the table in this room is like the singing, the acoustic guitar, strumming, and like the writing.
Yeah.
But like there were a few like I think like the bass line on Double Exposure I'd come up with parts of it, and so I was like, hey, can you make sure to play this because I think that's really good. And actually the drums on Double Exposure, my friend Brandon from Rabbit Season, we'll still play together. He was the drummer I brought in. I'm like, help me try and make this happen, and he played that drum part and it was incredible. And so I was like, I don't want to lose this. So I sent that drum part to the drummer, and he nailed it.
Yeah. As he does.
Yeah.
Brandon's an amazing drummer.
Yeah, but like the studio musician played Brandon's part.
And just
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had a keyboardist and a guitarist. We got I forget what country, but the strings are actually done remotely by a cello player and I think his sister in like an Eastern European country. And,
how does
like,
one
they sent
go
him
about like finding a cello player for?
Brett had him.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Brett just knew this guy. He's like, hey, I think he could do a good job. I was like, okay, let's try it. The horns, like he was just at his home studio in his backyard. He brought these horns players in. Like the trombonist like played on the soundtrack of Trolls 2 or something ridiculous.
Wild,
like
dude.
all these guys had played with like the biggest names, been on the biggest albums, but they're not that expensive, and they'll just like stop by.
Yeah.
Like Nashville's that's why it's so hard to make it in Nashville, because you have these absolutely incredible musicians, and
everywhere.
like, and they're just like working. Yeah,
that's economics, baby.
Exactly.
It's pulled up
yeah,
together,
man.
You don't have to get.
But
paid
yeah.
very well.
So I feel like the performance of the songs were very collaborative, and I feel like that made the album what it was.
I'm so glad that you had the horns in there.
Yeah,
and
man.
I love strings.
Yeah.
And like the way that, you got professional musicians to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and the brainchild for you.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds amazing. Like the places that you put them, and it's fun to hear them pop up in different kind of random places throughout the album too.
Mm-hmm.
So because it's you get obviously maybe the first or second song has like a specific sound to it.
Yeah.
But there are some on the album where you don't expect it to happen, and it happens later, and that's that swell that you kind of build throughout the album. And so I really respect it, and it keeps it fun because you're kind of waiting for new stuff to come through, and you're not expecting. You get surprised throughout the album. So
yeah, I think that was something I was almost a little insecure about. I was like, did I
overdo
swing
it?
or just like put too big a range of stuff?
Yeah.
Like because you listen to some albums and like every song will be very similar, like same instruments, same tones, same tempo. But I mean, I don't know. I just had like I feel like these were the best songs and they fit together in a weird way, you know.
And it comes together that way as well. Like it doesn't feel like you sat down and cranked out like over the course of maybe a couple weeks or a month or however long.
Yeah.
You know, and with the same goal in mind,
Mhm.
each song has its own kind of like flavor or like almost genre too. So it's interesting to listen to because you kind of get a little bit of everything when you're listening to this album. So it's kind of
thank
cool.
you. Yeah,
man, it's dope. It's dope. So what's it like going from being maybe part of a big band to doing the solo songwriter thing? Is it, I guess maybe do you have anything that you're doing differently when you're with the guys writing songs that you're doing now? Or is it, and we kind of talked about it and touched on it a little bit already, but what's that like for you?
It's not too different. You know, I think even with being in a band, I was still writing mainly, you know, by myself.
Yeah.
So not a huge difference. You know, I think it's more, it's like when you're in a band, I think it's very easy to define what the concept of the band is. It's like this band represents these things and they play this type of music and that's why we're together. You know, because it can be like a concept. It can be a logo and a sound because it doesn't exist anywhere else in the world but in those sounds.
It's unique.
But for me as a solo artist, I'm presenting myself as a person.
Yeah.
And so how do you keep a consistent sound and a consistent message and a consistent brand when you're like a person and you can't like control or manipulate yourself the way you could like the idea of a band, you know? So I think that's what I'm struggling with is like, and especially with the music being about my dad and, you know, death in the family and grief, like music marketing can seem so like overdone, egotistical, you know? And so it's like, how do I tell that story and tell people who I am and what I'm about without being crude about it, you know, and like kind of disrespecting the subjects I'm talking about?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I feel like that's the struggle. You know, it's harder to advertise myself than it is like an idea I have or like a group of friends doing something, you know?
That.
So that's where it's the most different, is just trying to like conceptualize myself as a musical thing instead of a person,
right?
You know?
Yeah. Well, and I think with anything like even podcasting, right?
Yeah.
Like obviously, first episode, the drum drop. You know, this is great.
How'd you come up with the name?
I was actually walking, just like I come up with anything else. Like I go for a walk, man, and just kind of like think and kind of brain dump in my own head and kind of speak it out loud. And that sounded really kind of fun and. Came up with all kinds of really cool like conceptual things too, as far as like logos, like dropping stuff downstairs or whatever. So it's just kind of like a cool thing. But I wanted something kind of catchy and something easy and simple and drummy. So obviously we're not going to be talking about drums all the time.
I do like drums.
I do like drums too, but most times I want to talk about what's going on behind the music and who these people are that are playing all these really great shows. And I came down to Atlanta maybe 2020 and really enjoyed like some of the music that I was hearing and I'm playing shows with these guys too. Yeah. So it's great that I'm able to kind of have the backstage like access to have conversations and like out of all the people that I've met, right, like there really haven't been the same story or there's always something unique, always something different. Yeah. And so like I had to figure out a way to like talk to everybody, and what better way to do that than on a podcast? So I'm sitting here with my man Jack Hamill. We're talking about his album coming out titled I Wrote This Album Because I Love You. Yep. And we're talking about his dad and the different collaborations of music and styles that he's got throughout the album and just the different things that musical styles and choices that he's made. I think it's really, really cool. So if you haven't heard any of the songs yet, well, you haven't because they're not out yet, but they're coming.
I've sent the link to a few people.
They're coming, for everybody. So I'm super excited to see the reactions for everybody in that department. So do you ever go outside and just kind of sit down somewhere like at a park and just play music for people walking by, or go to the Battery or something like that? Yeah, just kind of go. Do you ever do that?
I've played a few shows at like outside in the Battery, like a bar will hire me and put me outside.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't busked yet.
You
I
know
feel
the
like I
word.
should. Yeah, man.
You know the word.
Yeah.
I learned the word today. I was going to
Really?
surprise
Okay.
you with that word, actually. The busking.
Yeah.
The busking.
No, man, that's actually on my, like, I just keep a list of, like, things I could do to, like, promote, make content, you know?
Yeah.
That's on the list. I mean, that's intimidating, you know?
I mean, so, like, how more intimidating is it? I mean, do you get to hide behind the lights a little bit when you're on stage?
Well,
You don't get to see the faces?
I think it's a matter of not forcing something on someone. Like, if you put on a show, people can choose whether to go or not. But the second you, like, go down to the belt line and people are just, like, walking by and you're, you know, playing, asking for their attention, that's a little more presumptuous.
Right.
You know?
I feel that.
And it's also, like, it's not necessarily as supportive an environment. Like, I don't think anyone would ever go to a music show to, like, hate or critique.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
Maybe,
they're
like,
to see you.
maybe there'll be a musician in the back being like, oh, like, his amp is lame. I have a better amp. Because, like, musicians love to judge other musicians,
Absolutely.
you know?
Oh,
yeah. But,
my drums are better than your drums.
yeah, exactly. You can't, or, like, I would have played that riff better.
Yeah,
Or, like, you play cover, they're like, oh, well, Jimmy Page actually played this on the E string, not the D string.
Yeah. Don't be weird,
You
guy.
know?
Don't
Yeah,
be weird.
exactly. Like, relax. But, yeah, no, that's probably where the hesitation comes from. But, you know, I feel like that's something I need to start doing. Not necessarily the busking, but getting into more uncomfortable situations, you know?
Yeah. I think when you get into those uncomfortable situations too, like that new territory can inspire new music or new feelings or just, you know what I mean? So, and again, you know, it's just one of those things that you're able to, if you're able to get out of that comfort zone and do, who knows what happens, right? So, but yeah, no, it is intimidating. And I've thought about too, like grabbing some buckets or whatever and just like doing the outside thing with some homies, grab a bass, like come outside, like let's do this.
Grab a bass, I like that.
Yeah, but no, it is super intimidating. Like it's one of those things, like it's weird for me too, because like you said, and I don't think I've ever thought about like why it would be weird, but I think you summed it pretty well. Like kind of forcing your sound, like people are walking by, bro, like and you're trying to rip on a guitar or like whatever. You know, that's I get that. That's fair. What do you think maybe like the best qualities for like musicians to have? Maybe like patience, or is it a good ear?
Definitely patience.
You gotta have.
Best qualities? You know, I think humility. I don't think there's really much bigger of a turnoff in a place like music than like being into yourself and like thinking you're the best or better than someone else, just because like I feel like I had some of that when I was just starting out because you don't understand it yet.
Yeah.
But like there's no way to be better at this than someone else. You know, like you can work harder, you can put more time in, but like there's no objective measure of success. And everyone's doing it for different things, for different reasons. So, you know, I think just like humility, definitely, I think you have to have reverence for like how important art is. You know, I think it's very easy these days to treat music as just like a commodity or just something we listen to in the background while we do stuff. I think you really have to like respect what you're doing, you know, because there are a lot of times when you're not going to get validation from outside, you know, especially when you're just starting out. And so many people will, you know, like their first question is like, how are you going to make money at that? And I think a huge thing is just like understanding how important art is for the species of human beings.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like you have to view it as like a spiritual, incredibly important task that you're doing. Yeah. And you have to have respect for yourself.
It's deep.
You know?
That's
yeah.
really
I mean, well, that's what I've been struggling with is just like I haven't had that much success yet. You know, I'm releasing my first album. But I feel like for so long I've like when people are like, what are you doing? I'll be like, I'm trying to be a musician.
Right.
You know, I'm hoping to do this. And I feel like you just have to say like, no, I am this, you know? And it's not in a like competitive way, but it's just saying like, no, like being sure of yourself, you know?
Because you definitely have to be competitive and like trying to get gigs and that in that direction. But I think I know what you're saying. Like it's difficult to not want to just be like full send with it all the time. Yeah. And I've got a kid at home. I've got a wife at home, you know, so it's hard on them too if I'm trying to stay in that lane all the time. So for you it's got to be just at least interesting to be able to like kind of take the time for yourself and create and really reflect,
Yeah.
like grow as a person as you're coming up through this album.
Yeah.
It's really dope, dude.